The Doggy Room. Back in 2014, I decided to visit my parents at my old home back in northwest Montana. It's an old house in the middle of a sparsely populated area, surrounded by woods, with an especially dense spot behind my house. I always used to play back there as a kid, building small forts and carving on sticks that I found, making wooden knives and spears and whatnot. But my parents always told me not to go too deep, or I might get lost, and there are a lot of bears in the area anyway. One day, when I was visiting my parents, I had lunch and decided that I would go for a walk. My father suggested that I should walk along the driveway, since it was pretty long, but I told him I wanted to walk in the woods for some of the nostalgia. I walked out the back door, and the memories came flooding back. Everything looked pretty much the same. Even one of my old forts from years earlier was still standing. I decided to walk deeper, just to see what I was missing out on in my earlier life. The brush was a lot thicker and a bit hard to get through. Eventually, I came into a small clearing where I saw a small house. It was old and worn out, but was still completely intact and had a moldy white coat of paint. The moment I saw the house, I suddenly felt a weird feeling of paranoia, like something was watching me. I walked closer and noticed that the door was slightly open. I would have normally left it alone and walked away, since somebody could still be living here. But I felt like I needed to go in, like something was pulling me in. I decided to go in, and it wasn't much to write home about. Just some old furniture and kitchen appliances and a bunch of other dusty stuff you'd expect to find in an abandoned home. I then found the basement door. I really thought I should turn back now, because nobody wants to be in a dark basement in a house in the middle of nowhere. But that strange feeling was still beckoning to me, making me go in. I had to use my phone flashlight because the basement was really dark. Mostly normal things, like old shelves and canned food, were down there, as you would expect. I then heard a sound that gave me chills. I couldn't tell which direction it came from, but I heard a dog growling. I then walked to the other end of the basement, and that's when I see this door. It was a brown door with some text inscribed on it. Doggy Room. I was really confused because I couldn't figure out what that exactly meant, but I knew there was only one way of figuring it out. I slowly opened the door and raised my phone. What I saw still haunts me to this day, and when I saw it, my stomach dropped. The room was full of dog corpses. They were scattered across the floor, hanging from the ceiling and nailed to the wall. It was like macabre art, and I felt like I was going to throw up. The paranoia intensified, and I felt like I was going to die there. The growling got louder and louder, and I realized it was from a dog that was nailed to a wall in a crucifix-like position. Its eyes were open, and it looked straight at me, and that's when I heard a whisper in my ear. It hurts. I bolted out of that room, up the stairs, and out of that house. The whole time I could hear barking behind me, and strangely, the sounds of a baby crying. I sprinted all the way back home and called the police. About an hour later, I was back at the house with 3 officers. They looked all throughout the house, but they couldn't find the room. I showed them the spot where I found it, but it was just a blank wall, replaced with a picture of a man with a small child in his arms. I later asked my parents if they knew anything about the house. They told me it used to belong to a man named John. John had a son named Luke, who was killed by their family dog when he was a toddler. John killed the dog, and from that day on, he never stopped talking about how much he hated dogs. John died in 2002, and the house has been abandoned ever since. I still have trouble sleeping some nights. I can't get the image of the dog out of my head. Its piercing eyes still seem to watch me from my mind, and sometimes, I swear, I hear a growling from somewhere.